Welcome back to a new episode of the Women's Strength Society show. Today we are going to teach you how to tolerate more carbohydrate and bring them back up if you've been stuck chronically underfueling with carbs. And this is something that actually happened to you and then turned out you're a carb monster.
I'm a carb machine. Hopefully baby is also going to become a carb machine.
Yeah, I think it runs in the family, so I have good hopes for that.
The bump is out. If you're watching, you see it, but if you're just listening to us, I just unpacked the bump. I cannot hide it anymore. Anyways, that's not the topic of today's podcast episode. So yeah, carbs, the strategy, how to tolerate more carbs again. And I think when I'm talking about carbs on social media and about like, hey, why do you feel like, or trying to explain why you feel like puffy, eating more carbs or sluggish or like all those things, then it resonates with a lot of women. Like we hear it and we see it all the time. It's like you're introducing carbs, or you understand at some point that carbs are important, but you're unsure how to go about it. So you probably just go for it and try to eat more of them. But then the weight creeps up, you maybe feel tired, you are having more hunger, like all those things happening. And then often women cut back on carbs again because they think like, oh, you know, carbs are making me feel this way, so it's not good to have them. Let's have less of them again. Let's go back to what I previously have done, which is always a short-term strategy. And so today we are going to talk about how long-term you can help or like support your body to be able to tolerate carbs better again.
Yeah, and I think it's a legitimate like hurdle or challenge when you try to increase carbs and then you have some of the symptoms that you just described. One of the things that was great for you specifically was it was the opposite. Like when you went low carb and even keto, then you started to actually get more puffy and gain weight. But then when you reintroduced the carbs, then it was the opposite. The weight went down and you felt and looked less inflamed. So in that kind of scenario, then it becomes easier to trust that this is the right path. But there's one thing that's become more challenging, I guess, for a lot of women out there is that the carb bashing and low carb trend has become so prevalent and became much more mainstream that it makes it difficult, because even if you have the best intentions and understand that carbs are actually beneficial for you, then there's like a subconscious baggage of fearing carbs and thinking that they automatically lead to weight gain. And even when objectively you reintroduce them and you don't have those symptoms, then it can still be pretty easy to think that this is happening and then think like, oh, this is the results of me increasing the carbs. So we are going to get quite tactical today and have pen and papers ready. We go into more details about the symptoms of what it feels like when you go low carb and it's not serving you in the previous episode. So if you are unsure whether this is actually, for you to increase the carbs, then definitely check out the previous episode. When you do it, then drop a like, subscribe to the podcast, share it with someone who's in the low carb trap. And then we are now going to go into it. So there are three main things that you can do to increase your carb tolerance and that you want to include in your strategy when you reintroduce the carbs. And I just want to mention them so that I don't forget them. The first one is going to be about, it's not related to your food intake, but it's more about your activity and your workout. The second one is going to be mainly about the meal timing. And then the last one is controlling for calories and macro intake. So the last two are more about the food itself. The first one, which is huge, is about, activity level and workouts. And so the very first thing you want to have in mind and you want to do if your goal is to, eat the carbs benefit from what carbs can give you, and at the same time make sure that your body is agreeing to eating more carbs, is simply to walk a lot or be active or roll. It's very difficult to tolerate a lot of carbs if you're a couch potato. Like, this is fact.
Because carbs are giving you energy. So if you're just stuffing yourself and you are a couch potato, then of course carbs will. It's not that they will not agree with you, but they're not able to serve their purpose. And so, if you want to be able to tolerate more carbs, you need to understand that this is a body that moves quite often throughout the day, and it's very, very hard to tolerate a lot or more carbs when you are sitting all day long. So when you're having a sedentary job, you need to make it an effort, like you need to make it a priority to implement movement throughout the day, get a walking pad, whatever it is, so that you are not sitting all day long.
Yeah, and it's important what you just said. It's not only about like the amount of steps that you're doing in total over the day, but it's also about moving your body throughout the day several times. And this is actually pretty simple to implement. It's enough if you say like, hey, every time that I stand up, be it for, a cup of coffee or a glass of water, or if you need to go to the bathroom, then you just take the longest way you could possibly take to do that. And instead of going as fast as possible between A and B, then you just walk for like 5 to 10 minutes. And just doing that, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it really quickly adds up over time, and it really helps quote unquote activate your metabolism, for lack of a better word. But for the sake of understanding, let's say that this is exactly what's happening. And so you are going to shift things in your body when you are moving around, and it doesn't have to be super long. So if it's just like 5 to 10 minutes, you go a few times between your how do you call that? Bureau. Office and the bathroom or the kitchen. You go up and down the stairs a few times. It doesn't have to be long, but you just do it. So that's one thing. The frequency of movement is going to be important. Now, in terms of quantity, for most people, like shooting for those 10,000 steps per day is going to be a very good target. When it comes to really improving body composition and leaning out, then we see that 12 to 15,000 is kind of the sweet spot. There are a few scenarios where we could limit that. So there are a few high achiever out there, like the type A woman who really wants to overdo it. In some cases, then it's good to back off a bit. But if you're in that range of 10 to 15, then you're going to be in a great spot in the vast majority of situations.
And I think it's one of those things that I'm confronted as a coach with a lot, actually, is the activity level throughout the day with clients. And so often women do have kind of lower-ish maintenance calories. And they would like to be able to eat more because, if you can eat more and tolerate more food in general, more carbs in general, you just have more buffer, let's say it like this. So also when you're maybe eating out here and there and it's maybe a little bit more than what we were estimating, then you just have a little bit more buffer. And so I see that all the time. It's like, hey, I would love to eat more, but then looking at their activity throughout the day, it's like I'm getting 5,000 steps and I'm like, we got to change that, because really a body that tolerates a lot of food is one that needs that food. And so if you're not moving, you probably don't need that much food. There are some outliers which can tolerate more food even though they're not moving so much, or more carbs. But in general, if you are currently hitting just 5,000 steps a day, then don't expect your body to tolerate, 3,000 calories with 400 grams of carbs or something like that, right?
Yeah,
So
not gonna happen.
that's not gonna happen. And when we are also looking at, I always like to then bring up the image of the athletic body the women we work with strive for: athletic, lean, defined, strong. And so those women, they admire and they see on social media, whether that be like fitness coaches, influencers, or athletes. Those people are moving a lot throughout their day, right? And so you need to understand that. And if you are not an athlete, then you will need to make some effort to get closer to that kind of lifestyle. And I remember back in my 9-to-5 job, I mean, now I also have a 9-to-5 job. I'm also sitting a lot at the desk working on my laptop because we have an online coaching business. But I remember when I did my corporate job, 9-to-5, that was one thing that really like tripped me off and why I wanted to get out of it, so that I can be more in charge of my day-to-day life. And so I think those are things we sometimes don't see, like the decisions people make in the background to be able to live that kind of lifestyle, because in the end it is like, it's not an easy decision most of the time, right? I'm not telling you to leave your job now and walk around all day long so that you can just like train and eat and recover and become that like athlete. But it's still that I made those changes on like purpose so that I can have that lifestyle, because I just knew for myself, this is who I wanted to become. This is who I wanted to this is someone who I envisioned for myself to be that person who has that type of lifestyle, to be active in my day-to-day life, to be able to go out for 30 minutes and do my walk, to be able to have a walking pad while working, instead of being trapped in an office where they tell you like it's not allowed or something like that.
Yeah, I think I'm assuming, I'm not entirely sure, but I think that this is slightly shifting, because the big employers and big companies are realizing how much it costs them actually to have employees that are not really fit.
Yep.
And walking is one of the best thing that you can do to do that, and it's free, and for them it's going to cost a few treadmills or walking pads. So and the reason I say that is because walking is going to help reduce stress, it's going to help reduce inflammation, it's going to help improve redox balance, and those are all things that are going to have an impact on what's called nutrient partitioning. It's basically what your body does with the food that comes in. So when you eat something, is it going to go to your organs, to your muscle? Is it going to go into your fat cell? And if you can create a better metabolic environment, then your body is just going to be better equipped at using the fuel that you are eating. And this is something that happens quite profoundly when you are walking. This is also one of the reasons why it's so powerful when it comes to leaning out. Is it's really because it helps create that metabolic environment that's very beneficial. And every time I see on social media people talking negatively about steps, I just want to punch them in the face, because I'm like, maybe it's true that the 10,000 step thing came from a Japanese company that wanted to sell a podometer, but this is literally one of the most potent thing that you can do to stay healthy and to increase your health span and lean out and have great like body composition. And there are actually a lot of studies. Those are observational, so there are of course like other things that go into that, but great observational studies about population that walk a lot. One of them is in the Amish population, I think. So they don't have phones and laptops and whatnot, as far as I understand it. They still live like a pretty, I don't know how...
Like on a rural
lifestyle, like conservative, non-modern. I don't want to be, dismissive or sound negative towards them, because I don't know for a fact exactly how they live. But I just know that they walk a lot and they are very active throughout their day. Still a lot of manual labor, and it's not that they are working out a lot on that kind of stuff, but they're just like physically active, and part of it is walking a lot. And what they saw was that those are people who very consistently do 25 to 30,000 steps per day, which is a lot, and they have a very low body fat percentage. Like the men are like around 10% body fat, which is like very lean. Those are the guys that you see on social media that are pretty shredded. The women's are sub 20, and they do that despite like not tracking their food and eating high calorie dense food, things that are processed, and they use like butter and cream and like heavy food, so to speak, or very rich, and yet they are still like very lean because they are just very active. And then you also have the people saying like walking is not an exercise. I also want to punch them in the face. Yes, it might not lead to a lot of physical adaptation, but it's really going to have a huge impact on how your body function and the state your body is in. So walk more if you want to be able to tolerate more food, but specifically tolerate more carbs.
And then the second part of the activity is the activity in the gym, right? Be it the strength training or the cardio training that you're doing, or a combination of both. And this is something that we also observe a lot, is that when it comes to strength training now specifically, the women that are coming to us are not training at the right intensity. So they don't yet understand how to really train at the right intensity, which makes a huge difference for how your body is, or how your muscles are getting trained in getting those carbs into the muscle, to store them into the muscle. So you have the carbs that you're eating, and they're getting stored as glycogen in your muscle cells. And so when you're just for years on end kind of staying stuck at the same weights that you are using, then you will not have a lot of like adaptation in your muscle to become better at tolerating, like storing more carbs in your muscle. And this is where we see a lot of women really, really waste years of their time in the gym, and probably they're just like maintaining what they have created, but there's like not new like gains coming. And I'm not talking about really the aesthetics now, but just like how your body is functioning and how well your body can tolerate the carbs that are coming in.
And so when it comes to training, there are a few things that you want to have in mind that are going to lead to long-term adaptation, but also in the short term that are going to have an impact on your ability to tolerate carbs and or increase the need for carbohydrate. And this is about, the type of training that you're doing, but also the volume and the intensity that you are doing. For most women out there who are, who want to get in shape, but also want to live a long and healthy life, and they have no intention of becoming like a professional bodybuilder or a professional athlete, I think a framework that I just came up with would be the 3-2-1 method.
Oh no, you're like those fitness influencers on social media who are selling you their 3-2-1 method. My body changed once I did the 3-2-1 method.
Yeah, I'm freaking trying.
And then link in bio for my 3-2-1 method plan, command plan, and I will send it to you.
All right, the 3-2-1 method, I'm just going to push it very good, is 3 strength training per week, 2 low intensity session per week, 1 high intensity session per week. Very straightforward, very easy to understand. If you can implement that, then this is like a very, very good structure that's going to enable you to make progress long term, but also for the topic of the day, then to tolerate more carbs. And there are a few reasons for that. The first one is about the high intensity cardio. So you are burning through a lot of energy when you do that. Sometimes, as high as 800 calories per hour, or maybe even more. The fitter you get, the more you tend to burn. And so it means that you can really go through a lot of your energy reserve in that time, which means that those reserves need to be refilled afterwards. And so when you do that, because the intensity is so high, then you are mostly burning carbohydrate. And so if the tank is empty, then you get to eat more, right? Because it's empty, so you have room for that. And the carbs that you eat are going to go straight into your reserve.
It's like finally driving the car like we do now, because we have a new car. Vroom, vroom. Which has just a little bit more, how do you say that? Horsepower, right? You're having now a car with more horsepower because you did that type of training. So you are going fast, like you can go faster. You are going faster on a highway, and you are going to refill. You are going to have a bigger tank, and you are going to refill that tank.
Yeah, and this is something that happens in the short term, right? Because like immediately during the session you burn the carbs, and then you need to refill those. But if you do that long term and you don't go crazy and start to do high intensity training like every day, because you are going to burn out if you do that, then you are going to improve your ability to refill the tank, and you're also going to create a bigger tank. So that's the first one. The second one is the low intensity cardio. Similarly to the steps, it's also going to have a positive impact on your metabolic state, maybe decrease a bit inflammation and decrease a bit stress. But also, it's going to help you improve what's called metabolic flexibility, which means that your body can switch more easily between different type of fuel, which means it's going to be better equipped at burn fat. And so it means that within your blood, you always have, amino acids, fatty acids, carbohydrate, like blood glucose it's called. And your body needs to, or is using all of that more or less appropriately, depending on its ability to burn those different type of fuel. And if your body is not really good at using one type of fuel, then it's going to create some, it's like in traffic when you have a lane that's fully stuck and then the other ones are driving fully, then overall it's still going to clog the whole thing, and the traffic is not going to be as fluid as it could. Whereas if you have like very fluid traffic, then you can just go and have more throughput in terms of cars, since we are in that analogy. And it's the same for you, right? So if you are able to use the different type of fuel, then you will be able to just have more throughput, and this is really the fuel that comes in that you are going to be able to use that more easily. And overall, it's going to help you again also have a bigger engine and be better at refilling the fuel tank. For the strength training, then it's also about increasing the size of the tank, mainly because more muscle means that you need more fuel, but also that you can store more fuel. The biggest storage capacity for carbs in your body are your muscle. And if you have more muscle, then, or if your muscles are bigger, then it means that you literally have a bigger tank for carbohydrate. And again, this is also like both short-term and long-term. So short-term, if you do a session and you do more volume, then you are going to use more glycogen. This is the form of carbohydrate, how they are stored inside your muscle. And if you do 10 by 10, for example,
German
volume training, which is a very high volume type of training, then you are going to use more glycogen than if you do like 3 by 3, which is very much like strength oriented, where you use a very, very high weight, but don't do a lot of repetition. And so if you do that type of training, if you work your way up to having a bigger work capacity and being able to tolerate that type of volume, like don't
start with 10 by 10.
Don't jump straight into like German volume training. This is a bad idea. But doing that once or twice could be fun in the long term if you've built your way up to that. And so if you do that, then in short term, you're going to be able to tolerate more carbohydrate because your body needs to refill the tank. And if you work your way up to tolerating that kind of volume, then you are going to be able also to tolerate more carbohydrate overall.
Thank you for that.
Yes. Now we can move on to
the nutrition piece.
The nutrition piece. So there are two parts to that. The first one is the meal timing, and this is something we are very big on. Your body has a circadian rhythm, which means that a lot of the processes that happen in your body, they are regulated on a 24-hour, almost 24-hour cycle. It's regulated by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it's literally a clock in your brain that's syncing your whole body. And this has an impact on your insulin sensitivity, on your metabolic rate. And we know that in the morning, your insulin sensitivity is higher, your metabolic rate is higher thanks to thyroid hormones that are higher. Your body is going to be better equipped at using carb and fat. And this is something that decreases throughout the day. And, your body uses calories and carbs at the end of the day slightly less efficiently. And so it means that if you want to be able to tolerate more calories and specifically more carbohydrate, then eating like soon after you wake up, within 60 minutes, and then having like front loading most of your it doesn't have to be most of, but more of your total carbohydrate and total calories in the first part of the day, you are going to be better equipped at using them, and you are going to be able to tolerate that better. And this is something that we see very frequently in coaching, where we make those changes for women who, haven't been eating carbs for a long time, and they are afraid of doing that because usually what happens is they increase carbs, but at dinner.
Or whenever, it's like a little bit like I'm just increasing my carbs.
Yeah. And then this is where it kind of backfires, and then they're like, oh no, I cannot tolerate carbs. But then we make that switch, and we really emphasize on getting that earlier in the day, like through from breakfast to lunch, and then having smaller and earlier dinner, roughly 3 hours before bedtime. Then we see that over time, very quickly, within like 1 or 2 weeks, then the body adapts to that, and then you're able to tolerate more carbohydrate. So this was actually pretty straightforward. There's not much more to say to that. There's one caveat to it, is it's also going to be helpful for you to have carbohydrate around your training session. And so if you are training, in the later part of the day, in late afternoon, early evening, then it's okay to shift a bit more of the carbohydrate towards that. But you still want to have most of it before the training, before and during training, so that after it, for your post-workout meal or snack, you're still able to have like a smaller portion and not have the vast majority of it after your training and right before going to bed.
I always like to say, like, it's really as you are prepping your body for the training session. So you're getting all those meals in across the day. Your body's really like filled up with carbs, and then you're going into your training. It's not only the, one meal before your training that will have an impact on your training, but everything kind of that you have eaten across the day that will help you and give you that energy for the session.
100%. And this ties into the last part of it for today, which is, taking into account overall calories and carbohydrate intake. And so one mistake that a lot of women do is simply increasing the carbs without, managing the caloric intake with it. And then it's just like an increase in total calories. And suddenly they are then in a calorie surplus, and or it's increasing carbohydrate, but at the same time also increasing fat, because it's not like the unprocessed, quote unquote clean, I'm afraid to say that, but quote unquote clean source of carbohydrate. But it's like, okay, now let's eat the carbs, and it's going to be ravioli and croissant. And things that are not only the carbohydrate.
Yeah, so it's easier most of the time, especially for someone like if you are not yet deep down in the rabbit hole of like calories and all the macros and the food choices and so forth and so on, then oftentimes we think about carbs as the pizza and the pasta and the ice cream and whatnot, like all of those things. Whereas when we are talking about carbs and increasing the carb intake, we would think about pure or very carb dominant food sources, so that when you are adding them in or increasing them in your day-to-day life, you're getting mostly carbs out of it and not the other macronutrients. It's just way easier to go about it like that. So you would eat more white rice or whatever rice, kind of, you can also eat brown rice, or eat more potatoes, right? So it's easier to go about it like this when you're increasing your carb intake, to pick those types of foods, than to go with a mix of carbs and fats, because if you're increasing your carbs, you're getting a lot of fats with it as well, which can really, really blow up your calorie intake.
Yeah, 100%. So that's more about food choices. Now, in terms of quantity, it's extremely difficult for us to give like guidelines about what to do, because this is going to be impacted so much by the type of training that you are doing, by your activity level, by your body height and body weight,
by your recovery.
Sleep is something that we haven't mentioned, but it's also going to have an impact on your ability to tolerate carbs. So this is very, very easy. Sleep as much as you can, period, full stop, if you want to be able to tolerate carbs. But to give you like a rough idea about caloric intake and carbohydrate intake, you can take your body weight in kilos and multiply it by 35, and this is going to put you in a rough ballpark of caloric intake. And from that, roughly 50% is going to be carbohydrate. So to give you an example, for a lady who weighs 60 kilo, that's 132 pounds. We multiply that by 35. This is going to give you 2,100 calories per day, so 2,100 calories per day. And of that, roughly 50%, it can be a bit less, it can be slightly more. The more active you are, the more it can become. The less active you are, slightly lower it's going to be. But let's take 50%. It's going to be 1,000 calories, 1,050 calories.
1,050.
And then 1 gram of carbohydrate give you 4 calories. So you need to divide the total calories from carbohydrate by 4. And this gives you roughly 262.5 grams of carbohydrates, right? So
that's why you said like get pen and paper ready, right?
Get pen and paper ready. So this gives you like a ballpark. If you also use the 3-2-1 method in terms of training, then it's going to put you in a good trajectory. Yeah. And we also know from like sports science the ranges of carbohydrate intake in relationship to your body weight. And the recommendation goes between roughly 4 grams up to 10 grams of carbohydrate per kilo of body weight. And if we look at the math that we just did, it was 262?
Yeah.
So that would be almost 4.5 time the body weight of someone who weighs 60 kilos. So it's the lower end of that range. If you use the 3-2-1 method, then you are not yet like a pro athlete who needs like higher.
We should launch the 3-2-1 method as a like training program.
Okay, we can try that. We can try it out. I'd be stoked, to be honest.
to try it out.
Yeah, I could leave my, influencer self
Yeah.
on. I can see that. 3-2-1 method.
Anyway, when it comes to carb like intake, and if you have done the math now and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is like, I'm so far away from that number, then take a slow and steady approach. Don't especially if you're a little bit like unsure about how to go about it, and you're not working with us. Then slow and steady wins the race. Usually what we do is we really have a look at how everything is changed, like how the body is responding with our clients. So weekly check-ins to have a look at the data points, but also understand how the person is feeling, and then go from there. The increases in carbs that we are making are anywhere between 20 to 30 grams at a time. So it's not that we are going from like 150 to like 250 grams of carb in a week, but it's really like small increments. We are climbing up the stairs. One example of that is the work we did with our client Leslie, who was eating, I think it was 80 grams of carbs a day. She was on the keto low carb wagon for a very long time. She even had, she was even scared of eating like blueberries. So very low carb, 80 grams of carbs a day. And over 5 months, because she was doing that for years on end, over 5 months, that's why I said like slow and steady, wins the race. We increased her carb intake to over 200, and she did not gain a single pound. And this is what we did in preparation of being then able to drop into a fat loss phase later. But we needed her to be like properly fueled and increase her food intake and calorie intake for a pretty long time. In her case, to then get again the response from the body once we dropped into a calorie deficit and went then successfully through a fat loss phase where she leaned out but also felt amazing going through the process, right? So that's always the goal, but I just want to put an emphasis on that because I also see women reaching out and being like, hey, I tried to increase my carb intake, and they went a little bit like they were all over the place, increased too much at once, just too fast, and then you just feel like shit. You're unsure, the weight crept up, and you're like, okay, let's cut them back again. So rather take a slow approach, but make it like sustainable for your body. Get your body used to it again, using the strategies that we talked about today, rather than being like, hey, quick fix, let's just eat more carbs and then feel like shit and then go back to what you did before.
100%. That's super important. And we just gave you like in this podcast very solid guidelines. The next step, if you still feel somewhat unsure, or if you want to really be certain that this is the right move for you, then the next step would be to sign up for the challenge that we have that's going to come up in a few weeks from now, so that we help you do exactly this.
Yeah.
And then we also have time like for a few weeks to help you monitor that and understand what's happening when you do increase the carbs, or otherwise we also have a resource. It's called Macros Made Simple.
Yes.
And it's going to help you create that structure for you based on your numbers, so that the training volume, the activity level, your weight is going to be taken into account, but also food choices, so that it's not about like, oh, I increase the carbs and then it's a ton of ravioli, or it's carbs and fats, or I love to eat cookie, and then your carbs are cookie, but also
Cookie.
teaches you, how to maximize the carbohydrate intake from foods that are going to help you actually tolerate those carbohydrates.
Oh,
So
yes.
the link will be below this episode. Right now it's the waitlist for the challenge.
Exactly.
If you cannot wait, then the other one is going to help you start it right away. And yeah, that's it for today.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.